Question 2 reads something like this. 2.1. Solve for x when given 2.1.1 x open bracket, so that is multiply, x minus 1 close bracket, and the entire thing is equals to 20. We have to solve for x. But before we go on solving for x, we have to ask ourselves a question. What is it that we specifically notice about this equation? One of the few things we notice about this equation is that it is a quadratic equation. But what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is an equation where the exponent of the variable is at most 2. A quadratic equation has at most 2 solutions. We can solve a quadratic equation using factorization. But let us expand this equation so that we can put all that we've just learned into perspective about quadratic equations. Okay, so we have x, open bracket, x minus 1, close bracket, and the entire thing is just equals to 20. So we have to expand the left-hand side. This means we have to multiply each term in the bracket with the value outside, which is x. This is just using the distributive property. So let's do that. We're going to have x multiplied by x. It's going to give us x squared, and then we have minus this minus here, and then we have x multiplied by 1, which is going to give us x, and the whole thing is just equals to 20. So we have successfully expanded the left hand side of the equation. We now have to rearrange this equation over here so that it takes the standard form. The standard form is given by ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. So this is the standard form for a quadratic equation. And we can see that this equation over here is not yet in the standard form because we still have 20 on the right hand side. Okay, this means that to have 0 on the right hand side, we have to get rid of this 20. But how do we get rid of that 20? We simply subtract by 20 on the right hand side. But because remember in maths, what you do on the right hand side, you must also do on the left hand side. So we'll have x squared minus x minus 20 equals to 20 minus 20. And we know that 20 minus 20 is nothing but 0. And then on the left hand side, now we have an equation as x squared minus x minus 20. And now you can clearly see that our equation is now in the standard form of a quadratic equation. Using the standard form of a quadratic equation as reference, we can see that a equals to 1, b equals to -1, and c equals to -20. So we have now determined the value of a, b, and c for this equation. All right, now that we have found the value of a, b, and c, our next step is to factorize the left-hand side. How do we do that? Let me write this equation again. So we have to factorize the left-hand side. To do that, we simply open two brackets. The whole thing is equals to 0. And then in each bracket, we put x and x, and then we're going to leave spaces for the remaining terms. Okay, the next step in this process of factorizing the left-hand side would be to find the factors for a and the factors for c. You'll see how we do that just now. But then let us revise the meaning of a factor. What is a factor? A factor is a number that divides into another number exactly without leaving a remainder. For example, if you take 2 and then the factors of 2 would be 1 as well as 2. 1 divides twice into 2, it doesn't leave a remainder. 2 divides twice into 2. 2 divides once into 2 without leaving a remainder. And now our task is to find a pair of factors for a. So those will be, a pair would be 2 factors for a, so that when we multiply them, they will give us positive 1. And a pair of factors for c, that when we multiply them, they will give us negative 20. How do we do that? Let me write this on a different page. So we know that a equals to 1 and c equals to negative 20. And I said we have to find a pair. For a, it's simple. We have to open a bracket, 1 and 1. So this is a pair of factors. 1 times 1 will give us positive 1. But then for c, there's many factors. For example, we can have negative 20 and 1, 20 and negative 1. What's the other one? 10 or negative 10 and 2, or 10 and negative 2. What's the other one? We can have negative 5 and 4, and for 5 and negative 4. All right, so we have found a pair of factors for a that when we multiply them, they give us positive 1. And the same thing for c. When we multiply any of these factors here, they will give us negative 20. What is the next step? The next step would be to substitute these factors into these brackets. Remember, we had opened brackets before. So for a, it's quite simple. There's only a single option. So we had 1 and 1. So we'll put the first one here and the second one here. But remember, the coefficient of any variable, if the coefficient of any variable is 1, you don't need to write it. So that will just remain as x and then equals to 0, and then the second x in the second bracket. But now we have to substitute the value for the factors for c. How do we know which one is the right one? Well, the right one will be such that when we multiply the brackets, they will take us back to this equation. So let's try the first option. So the first option is minus 20. We'll put it here. And then in the second bracket, we'll put positive 1. So x multiplied by x will give us x squared. X multiplied by 1 will give us positive x. Negative 20 multiplied by x will give us negative 20x. Negative 20 times 1 will give us negative 20, and we said the whole thing is equals to 0. But now we see if we collect the like terms, x squared plus x minus 2x is going to be 19x minus 20. So we see this is not the equation that we started with. So we have to test the second option. So I'm not going to do all of that. I have already done it. So I tested the second option, which was 20 and negative 1. The third option, negative 10 and 2. The fourth, 10 and negative 2. Negative 5 and 4. Positive 5 and negative 4. And if you look at them, if you look carefully of them, so this one gave us a middle term of negative 19x. This one negative plus 20x minus x will give us positive 19x. This one, these two terms, will be negative 10x plus 2x will give us negative 8x. These ones will give us positive 8x. This one, negative 5x plus 4x will give us negative x. So meaning the fifth option is the right one. This option is the right one. These are the factors, the pair of factors that we're looking for. So let's now substitute it back into our equation. So we see that negative 5 and 4 are the factors that we want to substitute in our equation. So we'll do that with the negative 5 and negative positive 4. So now we have successfully factorized the left hand side. The next step would be then to solve for x. To solve for x, we will simply say x minus 5 equals to 0, or x plus 4 equals to 0. And then we want to be left with x on the left hand side. To do that, we have to add 5 on both sides. So we'll have x minus 5 plus 5, and then 0 plus 5. So minus 5 plus 5 is 0, so we'll be left with x, and then 0 plus 5 is 5, meaning the value of x is 5. We do the same thing for this, so we'll have x. To be left with x on this side, we'll then have to subtract 4. So we'll have plus 4 minus 4, which is equals to 0 minus 4. So it's that thing what you do on the left hand side, you must also do on the right hand side. Here I added 5 on the left hand side. I also had to add 5 on the right hand side. Here I subtract 4 on the left hand side. I also have to subtract it on the right hand side. So my plus 4 minus 4 is going to be 0. So we are left with x, and then 0 minus 4 is going to be minus 4. So now we have found the value of both. So we have now found our two values. Remember, we did say that a quadratic equation has at most two solutions. So this is our first solution, which is positive 5, and the second solution, which is negative 4. But then the most important thing is that we have to check. So checking is important. Are these the right values? Okay, remember we started with an equation x open bracket x minus 1 bracket equals to 20, and we found the value for x to be 5 or negative 4. So now we have to check, are these the right x values? To do that, this means that if we substitute the value of x here, and here, we'll have to get 20, so that the left hand side will be equal to the right hand side. So let's check for 5. So we have to substitute 5. So we have 5 minus 1 equals to, so 5 minus 1 would be equals to 4, and then 5 times 4 would be 20. So now you see that both sides are actually equals to 20. We can do the same thing for minus 4 minus 1. How much is that? So we have minus 4. Minus 4 minus 1 is going to give us minus 5. And then negative times negative is going to give us, a negative times negative is going to give us a positive. 4 times 5 is going to give us 20. So we have proved that the right hand side is in fact equals to the left hand side, meaning the x values that we found are correct. So yeah, this brings us to the end of our video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already done so, like, share, and yeah, leave a comment.